Hey there, welcome to this explainer. If you're a focused learner who's trying to optimize your mind, we are diving into a pretty chilling reality today. Your totally normal, everyday routines, they are secretly degrading your cognitive function. In fact, you could be losing up to 20% of your focus without even realizing it. And let me tell you, it's no accident and it's definitely no mystery.
So, are your daily habits literally making you dumber? Seriously, I want you to ask yourself that. Because this cognitive decline we're talking about, it isn't some mysterious symptom of just getting older. Not at all. It's the direct result of your daily choices. In fact, there's a really good chance you did at least 3 of the things we're about to cover right before you hit play on this.
Okay, let's dive into this. Think of this as a chronological day-in-the-life audit of your brain. We're going to cover 1, the morning fuel crash, 2, the illusion of multitasking, 3, the passive scrolling trap, 4, sleep debt, 5, chronic stress, and finally, number 6, reversing the damage.
Section 1. The morning fuel crash. How skipping breakfast or eating sugar starts the decline. Now, a quick warning as we go through this. These habits absolutely do not happen in isolation. They stack right on top of each other, compounding the damage. Let's start with your morning. Picture this. You wake up and your tank is completely empty. Your brain has been fasting for hours overnight and it is desperate for fuel. If you skip breakfast entirely, your glucose just plummets, your focus weakens, and decision-making instantly becomes a huge chore. But let's say you do eat. You reach for that quote-unquote healthy sugary muffin and a sweet coffee. Well, boom, you just kicked off a wildly destructive biological sequence. First, your blood sugar spikes incredibly fast. Second, your brain gets this quick, totally deceptive burst of energy. Third, you hit a hard, horrible crash. And fourth, you're left with profound brain fog. When you do this every single day, your actual insulin response changes, making your brain way less efficient at using glucose. Over time, the very neurons that help you learn and think clearly begin to weaken. You probably just blame it on stress, but honestly, the root cause is your morning routine. Moving right along to Section 2, the illusion of multitasking, the hidden cost of constant stimulation. So you get to work, right? The pace picks up. You're pinging back and forth on a chat app, you're trying to answer emails, maybe you're even listening to a podcast in the background. It feels incredibly productive, doesn't it? We really think we're multitasking, doing everything at once. But what's actually happening is task switching. Your brain is literally not built to handle multiple streams of complex information simultaneously. Think of it like a high-performance engine burning through its precious fuel reserves, creating massive mental friction every single time you rapidly jump from one task to the next. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the definition itself. Task switching is rapidly shifting focus from one thing to another, which drains energy and forces your prefrontal cortex to massively overwork. Every single time you switch, your brain loses a bit of its ability to focus deeply. You're actively shrinking your attention span. You're destroying your working memory, which, by the way, is exactly why you read something and completely forget it 5 minutes later, and you are absolutely killing your capacity for critical thinking. Because, well, critical thinking requires the exact sustained focus that you just trained your brain not to have. Which brings us to Section 3, the passive scrolling trap, rewiring your brain for shallow engagement. Okay, the workday is finally over. You move into your evening relaxation phase. You hit the couch, open an app, and your thumb just kind of takes over on complete autopilot. You aren't even actively choosing what to watch. It just happens for 10, 20, maybe 60 minutes. This is what we call passive consumption, receiving constant input without thinking, analyzing, or forming any real connections between ideas. And sure, it feels like a harmless break to your conscious mind. But behind the scenes, oh man, your dopamine system is lighting up like a Christmas tree. It's constantly craving another tiny hit of novelty. And this non-stop stream of shallow input is entirely preventing your brain from any sort of deeper processing, encoding, or retention. And the consequences here are severe. Heavy social media use heavily correlates with reduced gray matter in the brain, much worse decision-making, poor impulse control, and lower emotional regulation. This passive habit literally collapses your patience for complex ideas. I mean, have you ever noticed that just sitting down to read a long article suddenly feels exhausting? That's because your brain has been fundamentally rewired to expect constant, shallow stimulation. Information just flows in and out without leaving a mark at all. Section 4. Sleep debt. Robbing your brain of vital recovery time. All right, so now we've reached the nighttime phase of your day. You are physically exhausted, you've pushed through the entire day heavily relying on caffeine, telling yourself you'll just catch up on sleep later. But then you stay up, you're scrolling, you're worrying, and you never actually catch up. But here's the hard truth. 7 hours is the absolute minimum requirement for deep sleep. Why? Because sleep is when your brain literally cleans itself. During deep sleep, your brain flushes out all the nasty toxins that have built up during your day. It consolidates your memories and strengthens the connections between your neurons. If you consistently get less than 7 hours, none of this essential cleaning happens properly. You have forgotten what it feels like to think clearly. And this brilliantly illustrates the really insidious nature of sleep debt. The damage is cumulative. Look, one bad night won't ruin you, but months of poor sleep, that permanently changes your brain structure. It significantly weakens the hippocampus, which controls your memory, and it damages your prefrontal cortex. Chronic sleep deprivation is directly linked to lower IQ scores, reduced cognitive flexibility, and yes, even early onset dementia. You might sit there and think you function just fine on 5 hours, but the reality is your self-awareness is impaired. You just don't know what you're losing.
Section 5. Chronic stress. The overarching weight on your nervous system.
Now, stress isn't just some isolated event that happens once in a while. For many of us, it acts as the overarching backdrop of our entire day. You wake up stressed about work, you rush through the day worried about money or relationships, and even when you think you're chilling out in front of the TV, your nervous system is still fully activated. Consistently high cortisol levels physically change your brain's structure. It actually shrinks the hippocampus. It damages prefrontal cortex neurons. It reduces cognitive plasticity. It forces rigid thinking patterns. These high cortisol levels directly interfere with your neurotransmitter function. Basically, you lose your ability to adapt and you become highly reactive instead of thoughtful and measured. So the crucial point is this stress loop. You get caught in this terribly deteriorating cycle. It becomes harder to calm down, harder to think clearly, and your intelligence quietly, slowly fades. Stress and poor sleep directly feed into each other in a huge way. You're stressed, so you don't sleep. You don't sleep, so your brain can't recover, which makes you more stressed and way less capable the very next day. You just get trapped.
Finally, Section 6. Reversing the damage. Breaking the cycle of cognitive decline.
Okay, it is time to shift our focus to something much more empowering. Yes, the damage from the morning sugar crash, the relentless task switching, the mindless passive scrolling, the sleep debt, and the chronic stress, it is entirely real. But your brain is not fixed. It possesses this incredible quality called plasticity, which means it changes based on what you do every single day. If you want to protect your brain, you need to honestly audit your daily routine to spot these silent saboteurs. Right now, starting today, you get to choose what direction that physical change goes next. So I have to leave you with this question. Is feeling normal worth losing your mind? Because right now, all these destructive habits, they feel perfectly normal to most of society. They're totally accepted. But I really challenge you to break the cycle. Decide today that your cognitive health is absolutely worth fighting for and reclaim your mental clarity starting tomorrow morning. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.